Well, we lost Izzy. You know what? That's a drop the mic question. It was just so good. He's like, you know what? I'm out now. We'll re-effort Izzy as we'll get his thoughts on all things NBA. And because again, we forget the January, February, March. The conversation may or may not have been great about the NBA at times. Some of you have even tweeted the fact that it's not in great shape because we're going to have the same champion year in and year out. To which I would tell you that as of about a week and a half ago, NBA TV ratings were up 25%. So that doesn't show you the fact that we know who the champion is going to be may not matter. So we'll try it again. Izzy, we appreciate your time, man. What in your mind, what's been the key to the NBA capturing everybody's hearts this fall?
Oh, man. It's funny. I've been thinking about this for weeks now because we keep getting these updates, from our bosses on how good the ratings are in the NBA. And I'm wondering why it is. And I don't know necessarily if this is the case, but me personally, and I'm an NBA guy, so I have a bias here, but, I still love NFL football. I'm just not as in love with the NFL or with football in general lately. And there's just a familiarity. There's a consistency with the NBA. You're playing at a time now where you arguably have the greatest player of all time still in his prime, and you have arguably the greatest team put together of all time in the Warriors. Now, that's going to take a long time to actually decide if that's even true or not, but it could be the case when you look back. So it's just a really good time for the NBA, and it's not filled with the same thing of off the field or court issues as you have in the NFL. And it's just, to me, it just feels like it's not like a safe place. I know what I'm going to get out of the NBA. It's really good right now.
All right, that's Israel Gutierrez joining us, ESPN NBA reporter, joining us via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Izzy, a lot of people were big believers in chugging the Kool-Aid, not just drinking the Kool-Aid when the Thunder acquired and assembled their big three in the offseason. Didn't start out that strong, 8-12, but since then, 12-3, and it looks like they've turned the corner. Based on everyone you're talking to, your perception of things, what's been the biggest change and why it seems to be working right now with the Oklahoma City Thunder?
I think what we're talking about right now is that Russell Westbrook isn't really deferring at all, isn't changing his game up. He's just playing and pretending like the other guys, meaning Melo, George, Giannis Lefty, Sabonis, and Oladipo. Like, it doesn't really matter who they are. Let me just play my game, and they'll benefit from playing around me. And I think that definitely helped. I just feel like they got to a point where it was like, this is embarrassing, and, it took so long to get this off the ground, and it was even worse than, some of the quote-unquote super team starts in the past. And they just kind of buried their head and just said, all right, look, we have to play to our strengths and see what happens. And so far it's been working. I'm not convinced long-term that it's a great situation because you might have Russell Westbrook who ends up being super inefficient down the road. But I do think that, in this stretch of 16 here, he should have 56% from the field. So maybe it is a case where with better talent around him, with more things for defense to fear, that he can be more efficient scorer, and it doesn't have to be a low 40s type of percentage. So I just think it just surrounds Russell, and defensively they've shown they can be great. And so if they can be somewhat efficient and explosive offensively, then they're going to be top 3 or 4 team in the West.
It's great stuff. ESPN NBA reporter Iz Gutierrez. Izzy, we appreciate your time, man. Thanks for joining us. I know we had some problems with the phone line there. We appreciate it, Izzy. I'll ask you, Doug.
So what he was saying about, so we heard it probably a little bit better in our ears, basically Izzy was saying that Russell Westbrook sort of reverted back, a little too passive initially with these two big guys coming in, these all-stars. So sort of just kept being Russell, and even though if it was Paul George on the wing versus anyone else, Victor Oladipo, it doesn't matter. Just do you, and then the team will follow, and they've sort of made it all work and sort of just accommodated one another.
And I don't think I have a problem with that, even when we look back. Like, at the end of this year, we're going to look back at whatever happened with OKC. And I think anything that we look at for Russell Westbrook saying, hey, he's had to make adjustments, they should have to. There are adjustments to be made here. Like, that's sort of a real-world situation, right? I felt like if you want to say that he was tentative in the beginning of the year, just to use the word, if you want to say he was tentative in the beginning of the year and he's not now, he's also got to learn the guys that are around him. And that's why I continue to come back to this isn't the fastest process. It doesn't have to be the fastest process. It's sort of been, I didn't look at OKC most nights and feel like they were playing necessarily lazy basketball throughout the process. It just felt like they were playing disjointed basketball throughout the process.
It takes time. We saw it when the Heatles got together in 2010. It took time. They were slow out of the gates, and I said this on Monday's show with Golick Jr., is that the other big threes that have come together, whether it be the Warriors, which are really the big four, Durant went there by choice. They chose to welcome in and make this work. The Heat all went together in Miami. They did it by choice. Here it was all by trade, and they sort of had to figure it out, and it took a little bit more time. And not that they were totally against it, but it wasn't their idea, and so they really had to kind of figure it out. And just the way styles fit, it just took some time. But I do think Westbrook was way too deferential at the beginning of the season, way too passive, because he was a one-man wrecking crew last year, averaging a triple-double, had really no help in terms of all-star talent around him. Well, now he had these guns coming in and wanted to make sure that they got the ball and had to make it all work. It takes a point guard time to facilitate.
And it's interesting because I didn't take it as passive. I took it as just it felt like he wasn't comfortable. You know what I mean? I didn't think he was out there. Passive to me means he's out there and he's not really doing his job. And to me, he was out there sort of feeling things out, and that there's a much different approach. I know it's maybe we're splitting hairs in the way we communicate it, but to me, when you talk about Russell Westbrook early in the season, I felt like he looked unsure of what was around him. They looked
I think it's
unsure,
a combination of everything. I think unsure is the right word, and deferential and passive, whatever. It wasn't Westbrook being Westbrook and basically ball hogging, because that's what he did most of last season. He respected the guys, and he wanted to make it work because he knew that the only way they were going to beat the Warriors and the Rockets this year as well is to have all three guys firing on all cylinders. And then the complementary players have really stepped up as well. Steven Adams was great. And that win against Indiana a couple weeks ago, he was outstanding. So those role players are accommodating as well. But really, it's about Westbrook leading the charge and Melo accepting his role as just a spot-up shooter instead of trying to facilitate the offense through him.
Which has now happened. So then the question becomes, when the roles are like this and when everybody seems like they've found some rhythm and when these guys have come together, how sustainable is it? The other question is all of this for naught? If these teams put it all together and we don't get really interesting playoffs, is all of this goodwill that we have towards the NBA right now just sort of lost?
Well, it depends where you stand on just the overall, the millennial way of things, right? Just all about the end result instead of the process. I'm a Lakers fan, grew up in L.A. I love watching the Lakers right now. They have zero chance to win the title. I don't care. I just think taking the next step, seeing everything grow, the process of it all is really, as a sports fan, I love watching it. I love watching a lot of NBA games. I want to see if Utah can take the next step this year, as they've done each of the last couple of years. I want to see if OKC can really pose a threat to the Warriors. I know the Warriors are going to play the Cavs in the finals unless something crazy happens. But as a sports fan, I love watching Houston try to figure it out with both James Harden and Chris Paul. So I, as a diehard sports fan, love the process of it all and seeing other teams as well that I haven't mentioned. But to me, it's not a championships is all that matters kind of world. I know a lot of fans and really legacies of players are assessed that way. I'm not a subscriber to that philosophy.
And I think that's not just to you. I think that that's a big difference to many NBA fans. I've been making this argument for a long time. I think that most NBA fans, even the ones that are sitting there saying, you know what, the Warriors are likely going to, the Warriors are going to win the championship. Great. We're in an era where the best team, possibly, as Izzy just said, possibly the best team of all time, and possibly the best player of all time, are both in the NBA at once. We can have our arguments on that. They're both in there at once, and they're in two different places. So it's not the best player on the best team.
Good point.
It's two different spots to root for. And on top of that, you've got this next layer of teams that are interesting. So it comes back to, there's this sort of moment where I think most of us are enjoying watching the games, even though we know that the outcome at the end of the season is likely going to be Golden State winning the championship. I think the entertainment factor is what's important.
Right, but that doesn't bother me. I actually am more bothered by the NHL playoffs, where it's a streaky goalie and team, an 8 seed can go win it. I don't think that's necessarily better. In March Madness, we love the upsets, the Cinderellas, but the dirty little secret in March Madness is the second weekend, we want the 1 versus 2 seeds. We want 3 versus 5 or whatever the matchups are. We don't want 14 versus 3. Then we get 11.5 point spreads and we get blowouts.
Well, at some point,
it's fun. We want the drama and the excitement, but I don't mind that the best team's going to win the NBA championship. I think that's a true read on a putt, if you will. Like I think that's what we want.
That's an interesting, I think we do to a certain extent, but I think once you've had it too many years in a row, I mean, look at it. I think the Alabama-Clemson is such a compelling game for so many people because it's not the championship game. If it was the championship game again, we would have this, here we go again, college football's broken, there's only two good teams conversation would be everything we're talking about. Instead, I think part of the reason so many people are talking about Georgia, Oklahoma is because it's a new, fresh talking point. So in that sense, if Golden State can come in and beat anybody other than the Cavs, then maybe we get some varying level of, here we go. But there's also sort of this, I don't know. I'm going to go.
By the way, I think it's a foregone conclusion of who's facing off in the NBA Finals.
Right.
But I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that the Warriors are definitely going to beat the Cavs.
Really?
I mean, I think they should be the favorite. But I definitely think the Cavs have a puncher's chance. No doubt. They absolutely belong on the court with them.
That is. I'm not saying they don't belong on the court with them. I mean, if I had to put a month's salary on one team to win the NBA championship, it would be Golden State. And I wouldn't even hesitate.
Of course, no doubt. And would you take them versus the field?
Yes,
of course. Me too. But it's not a foregone. I don't think it's. I think they're the favorite, and I think they should be, and I think they should be a significant favorite, like they are, I believe, 2 or 2.5 to 1 right now. To win it all, minus 2.5 to 1. With that being said, I would not be shocked if the Cavaliers beat them in the NBA Finals.
That's interesting.
Shocked? No, come on.
Well, maybe not shocked, but I think if Golden State could lose a couple years ago.
The Cavs are loaded. The Cavs would win a title in many other years. The Cavs would have won the title in several other years.
Oh, LeBron's playing the best LeBron's played, I think.
I think this Cavs team, or last year's Cavs team with Kyrie, rather, could have beaten some of those Heat teams.
I think last year's Cavs team was very good.
I know LeBron's on both of them, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I think they're better. They're better than some of those rock fights we had with the Pistons and Spurs.
You think this Cavs team is better than last year's Cavs team?
I got to see Isaiah Thomas. My initial answer would be no.
Right, and that's the initial thing to me is that I feel like the Cavs took a step back because Kyrie Irving and part of that. I'll admit a recency bias. Initially in the trade, you're like, I don't know how many times did people sit around, smarter NBA minds than me sat around and said, oh, Kyrie might not be able to be the guy. And then
no, he's awesome. Yeah. But I will say this: I believe Jeff Van Gundy mentioned it on the Christmas Day broadcast. It is very helpful that LeBron doesn't have to guard Durant the entire game. Adding Jeff Green and adding Jay